So ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a brand new video, and today, we're talking about something that has been making the rounds quite a bit with the whole claim about the DCU being completely cooked. And do you know how many people have had come to me in the past few days or so saying, "What's this I'm hearing about the DCU getting rebooted again?" Whether that's from those who are just earnestly asking, or of course from those who, really don't like the DC Studios vision, just kind of jumping on it as though this is all a matter of fact, being like,
James Gunn is fired.
So I want to give my 2 cents on this, go into the claim for how I think it really is, and yet still talk about and even entertain how things could get impacted in the future. And towards the end of the video, just kind of assess the forecast for the future of the DCU. So to begin with here, what is the reality of this? That is the question. So the story comes from Cosmic Book News, which is an outlet that doesn't have great reliability, in my opinion, but nonetheless, because something has been put into the format of an article, it's as though there is automatically this seal of legitimacy, which is kind of one of my concerns about whenever something like this happens. So the article claims that after reaching out to their own insiders about the state of the DCU, the short of it is that James Gunn will be out as the head of the DCU with the Warner Brothers Discovery sale. I'm told if David Ellison of Skydance Paramount buys Warner Brothers Discovery, that Mike DeLuca will be in charge of DC and do a completely new start. So, what we have to go off here is really how much you trust this website. For me, the outlet isn't a reliable source of information, and if wind of this also was actually really getting around, do we really think that major Hollywood trades such as The Hollywood Reporter or Deadline to whoever else wouldn't have covered something like this with words supposedly getting around out there that this is an actual done kind of thing when the Paramount thing goes through? Now, the only other outlets or places covering this are websites that I don't even recognize, capitalizing on this rumor getting around and re-reporting the news to have some content to post. In a way, I don't blame them, because when something gains traction, obviously it's like, well, we gotta re-report it kind of thing. So for me, ladies and gentlemen, this whole thing feels like the story is kind of coming out at the right place at the right time. And what I mean by that is this article gained traction after more news about Paramount bidding on Warner Brothers stories were kind of developing, which in of itself has been a contributor to this form of discourse in the public town square online about how, or is the DCU over? Is it cooked if Paramount purchases it? Then you couple that in with the Peacemaker Season 2 finale airing, which, as we all know, was massively hyped up to the disappointment of many fans, thus contributing to the discourse once again, but also, the already existing discourse in general about different people out there having different feelings about James Gunn, which ultimately just really goes back to when he first came in as co-head of DC Studios. So with the Peacemaker finale, which on the bottom line left quite a bit of feeling for many fans out there, maybe not you, but maybe you watching right now, and then boom, this article comes out, not to mention the debate about Superman's profits. When you stir 3 things like this into a pot, you chuck that in with websites like Twitter and other fan news pages recycling this on their own accounts, making it kind of look like to the average Joe. Seems legit. Yeah, I'm not going to really read into this that much. Yeah, it seems legit. And hold your horses to those who are like, "Oh, Boba, I swear to God, you're just, you're not seeing any kind of merit in any concern." We're going to get to that. But I feel like in my experience in the many years I've seen stuff like this play out in all different kinds of stories, especially when there's already an existing contention within the fandom surrounding the topic at hand, people just have this very frantic reaction and conclude something as absolutely happening, where in the reality of the situation, it's never as black and white as that, but it's all that is being screamed out there for everyone to see. So in reality, for me, like, what you have to work with here is that there's a certain claim being made. All right. So therefore, I ask you, do you believe the source it's coming from? Then, with the whole Paramount story, okay, like, what is actually being said here? Paramount will destroy the DCU, and the article is claiming that Michael DeLuca is going to wipe everything clean and start again. It's all just conjecture, or trust my source. Now, I want to make this clear at the same time. I am not trying to invalidate any form of questioning or logic being explored for why people may believe Paramount could want to poke around someday. Because you could talk to me now and be like, hey, you know, Boba, but if they took over, they could do something like this, right? And it's like, well, yeah, like they could in theory, but again, we're just speculating here. When I try and put the rational hat on, in my opinion, I don't see any logic that makes me overly or massively concerned right now. For now, at least. Such as where Paramount purchases every aspect of Warner Brothers to just reboot the DCU. I've gone over my thoughts on this in a previous video, but the long story short is, I just don't, and I really mean this sincerely, I don't see how it would be in their best interests to do so. Because when you get into all of that, it's like, oh, so after limping to the borderline collapsing final moments of the DCEU movies, which, you know, left the general audience more or less uninterested, barely able to break past $400 million in the worldwide box office for various movies. And then the universe nearly gets rebooted in a direction where we would have actually had Black Adam fighting Henry Cavill's Superman if the hierarchy of the DC universe did actually go his way. Anyway, Warner Brothers then proceed to spend a few years in re-strategizing and reorganizing a new leadership and restructuring at DC, which birthed the DC Studios plan. Then they launched their first cinematic movie, which was literally met with positive response from, you know, both general movie goers to critics alike. And sure, by the way, it was always going to be an uphill battle box office wise, with the largest priority, I would say, was to get the goodwill of the general public back, to sow some interest back into the DC brand in the cinema and TV screen. And then you kind of move from there on out. But no, apparently Paramount sees all of this and thinks, you know what we're gonna do? We own this now. Great. Okay, but wait, let's light some dynamite and sabotage the whole rebranding efforts, which would, you know, really compound on the clusterfuck of a mess the DC brand has been through for the past decade or so. And we're going to make it harder, most importantly here in my mind, harder for the world and consumers out there to want to bother checking out the projects we're going to put out there through this IP with our reboot of the whatever the heck it is at this point. Listen, like, even if you're listening right now and you don't like or gel remotely with the current vision of DC Studios, you have to admit, brand-wise, business-wise, that's a decision where I'd like to think, even if you try and remove any and all biases, that I just can't really fathom. Again, this article is claiming that not only would Gunn be gone, but Mike DeLuca would be taking over DC, and it would be a completely new start. So completely wiping the slate clean. Again, that is what is being claimed here. Like, even if you put the Gunn thing aside, they wouldn't be continuing on with some rough plans or re-strategizing or reevaluating the existing slate. They would just be wiping it clean. But I still can't comprehend great business move, man. Yeah, people are gonna, you know, really be enthused about a whole new brand start. Like, that's just so exhausting for any normie out there to even comprehend, let alone fans who aren't even represented in the public town square of online discourse, which, believe it or not, isn't nearly as many people as you'd think. Now, to revisit the reality of the future, don't get me wrong, if Paramount purchased Warner Brothers Discovery, I couldn't rule out any changes or adjustments that might happen within DC Studios. Obviously, there's no way I can guarantee that if David Ellison took over, maybe like, you know, there could be a meeting with DC Studios, people to kind of get on the same page. You know, what I'd find to be a reasonable discussion out of all of this would be that if and when a purchase goes through, maybe after the release of Supergirl and how that performs, and Clayface tied in with the performance and the release of Lanterns on HBO, Paramount's leadership may want to reevaluate things, and I don't think that would be unreasonable at all. Like, if things just aren't doing great, then you would reevaluate things. That would happen under David Zaslav if the Paramount thing never happened. That wouldn't mean the universe is over. It might mean, let's say hypothetically, Lanterns performed well on HBO and eventually wins awards like HBO's The Penguin did. They might be like, right, okay, so let's look into steering projects into this direction, that direction. Oh, Clayface made money on the very small budget it had, kind of matching up to other Warner Brothers horror movies recently, and we'd like to see more things focused on that approach versus what happened in the first year or two of DC Studios. And sure, DC Studios is its own entity, because I can imagine people asking this, so it can't be messed with in the ways that executives did in the early days. But no matter what, if, let's just say, Paramount never purchased Warner Brothers and the DCU never did well, like 3 to 5 years from now, Zaslav himself would have the power to kind of be like, okay, let's talk about how DC Studios is being handled. So that would still be true under Paramount. Either way, there's my 2 cents on that whole situation. Let me know what you're thinking. Now, to end off this video, I think I want to talk about the other thing, that's the other conversation that's somewhat come out of all of this. You know, again, as I said, I think all of this is flared up with the Paramount sale, the Peacemaker Season 2 finale, the article about Superman from Forbes or whatever. Like, it's all kind of making this conversation about, you know, the concerns about the DCU and its range, so to speak. Because there are some very, very valid points here from fans of DC Comics, in the sense of this is a whole cinematic universe, both live action, animated, you name it. And if you're a DC fan and you love these characters like Batman, Superman, to whoever else, and you're not like a super fan of Creature Commandos, maybe you enjoyed Superman, but you didn't love it, but then you saw Peacemaker Season 2, and you're like, okay, damn, like, is this the DCU? I don't know if I'm on board kind of thing. I will say that this is the good thing about what the DCU has to offer. I get the hesitation about it, but here's some very real points that should hopefully still remind people that despite if you're unsure about the vision, that vision could still offer some stuff that might really be up your alley. And I think this ties into the whole Paramount side of it as well. And kind of another reason as to why I don't think they would completely wipe the slate clean upon coming in and owning Warner Brothers. I think there would still be time to evaluate things. So the projects we've had so far are very James Gunn. Creature Commandos kind of softly launched the universe. Not for everyone. Superman, there's, it was received well. Like, say what you will, you might like it, you might not like it, but we all see Gunn's style in that movie. Then Peacemaker, very James Gunn. Some people love it, some people don't so much, and obviously this raises the question of like, okay, well, that's 3 Gunn projects, and is this the whole DCU? But I think people forget, and I've seen a few posts point this out online, in all places, Twitter, but it is echoing a larger discussion and thought process that I think is happening with a lot of people. And how, well, again, what if I don't vibe with that? Well, don't forget, James Gunn has made it clear that for him, it's very important to kind of not do the cookie cutter thing. He wants to see director-driven, creator-driven, envisioned things in the DCU. He's expressed his thoughts about a lot of movies feeling the same. There's more of a spectacle fatigue rather than that of a comic book fatigue. And that's why when movies like, The Batman come out, that's not a cookie cutter kind of movie. That's like, you can tell the artist vision behind that is Matt Reeves. I often say, you look at Logan, that is like James Mangold, like that shines through that movie. It's not like the cinematic universe kind of, and I'm not trying to say every cinematic universe movie is the same, but they don't stand out like these other movies, right? So Gunn, from the get-go, granted, this still, we still need to see how this does, has made it clear that in addition to the stuff he's gonna do. And sure, he's like puppeteering what projects get greenlit with Safran and what doesn't, but nevertheless, he's still putting forward projects that are creatively handled and written and directed by entirely different people. Lanterns. Overall, Chris Mundy, like, showrunning that thing, and the writers on board, like, it's not Gunn. It will not. I'm very confident it will not feel like James Gunn. When Mike Flanagan wrote the Clayface script, wasn't in the original lineup, but they loved that vision so much that they kind of took the stab at, okay, well, we see how Warner Brothers has been doing lately with their movies and horror movies. What if Clayface could be one of those? No, it's not guaranteed that it will be great, but guess what? It falls under the banner of the DCU canon, but it will still feel like how the Batman or Logan don't feel like the cinematic universe type movies. Clayface will be a body horror movie, feeling like Jeff Goldblum's The Fly, you know, really creepy, really disturbing R-rated stuff that really is artist-driven and is, again, it's not going to have the Peacemaker soundtrack in it. It's not going to have the levity or style of Gunn in Superman. It's a James Watkins movie. Like Supergirl. People are kind of freaking out recently that Gunn said it's kind of like Guardians. And this is what I mean by hysteric responses. People just kind of want to dogpile instead of actually observing, like, oh, guess what? Did you know that Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow is literally a comic book that is a very cosmic adventure? So when he says that, he's just saying it's kind of like Guardians because it is out there in space. You have Supergirl and Ruthie on a space station, you know, things like that. It's a wild adventure. It will still be director driven and written by different people than James Gunn. Now, sure, we're going to loop back around to James Gunn with Man of Tomorrow and things like that, but my point is that we are, like, he knew from the get-go that it's important to kind of make sure you don't just do the cinematic universe thing 20 plus years into the future of comic book films. That's something that all while we need to see the fruits of the labor there always made me have faith in it, because it's like, okay, it wouldn't just be Gunn directed things each and every time. My biggest like of that was like, oh, so if Matt Reeves actually directed something in the DCU that was about a different character, it would literally feel like a Matt Reeves thing. Now we have that opportunity across the board. That is really cool, because I think making sure you have that originality despite it being within the canon of Gunn and Safran's DC universe, when you do eventually maybe get James Mangold's Swamp Thing, it could feel just as unique as his Logan movie did. But what I keep seeing right now is everyone casting every future project in the DCU for some reason under the same stigma of, oh, I wasn't so sure about Creature Commandos, or now Peacemaker with that finale and the buzz around that. I don't know if I have no faith. I've given up on the DCU. And look, I'm not gatekeeping your feelings for like whatever. You can do whatever the hell you want. But do you see why I feel like people are just jumping to things where it's like, okay, yeah, I'm not proven right now. Like, what if Lanterns doesn't do great? What if Clayface doesn't do great? But in concept, I think that is the right approach, to be honest, to take with any cinematic universe. I would love to see Marvel doing more of that. And they actually have kind of been doing some more different kind of things, because that breeding of creativity and not being constrained to just the same old thing. It's just, I think with the DC, we haven't really seen that yet. We've had Creature Commandos, James Gunn. We've had Superman, James Gunn. And we've had Peacemaker Season 2, James Gunn. Then tie that in to the whole conversation we just had. Paramount buying Warner Brothers, this, that, and the other. It's like, oh, well, damn. No wonder there's quite a bit of negativity going on. I just hope that Lanterns does impress people. That will be a good start. Then imagine if I'm not saying Clayface would do Joker levels, but I'm just saying, imagine if Clayface was genuinely a really awesome movie by James Watkins and Mike Flanagan wrote a killer script there. This is where you can kind of tie back in Paramount. Sure, they may have thoughts and stuff if they buy Warner Brothers Discovery, but if they see something working, or like there's still merit to kind of not wipe the slate clean and just shoot ourselves in the foot when it's like, hey, like this can work, that can work, we can still go down this road and that road. I don't see why business-wise they would squander that. Like, it seems like they would wait to see how things play out before reevaluating how DC Studios should maybe go about handling things after an assessment of a certain amount of projects. I just don't think you go in there and it's like, boom. So that's the way I see it for now, guys. Those are my thoughts on this whole bloody thing. Let me know how you feel about it. Let me know if you agree. Let me know if you disagree with me. Very intrigued to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. But if you're still watching right now and you enjoyed the video, even though it was a bit of like a negative kind of one, I don't know, I'd appreciate a like, and maybe consider hitting that hype button if you have it available in your location. Consider subscribing for more videos like this, you know, reviews, news updates, bonus videos for DC, of course. And overall, just thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see all of you guys in the next video. Goodbye.